We just watched Adaptation.
That was a wild movie, man.
That is honestly one of my favorite movies. I think so far it's, at least in my opinion as a movie watcher, it's the best one that we've watched so far.
I would agree.
And there's a lot of ways that movies can be good. You can have a good story, good acting, cool directing, revolutionary technique. I would say with this movie, the writing is the star.
The writing, yeah. I mean, I couldn't pay attention to the camera work because I was so enthralled with just what was going on.
The conceptual ideas that are being presented to you and like the themes, and it's just so like deep and layered and meta.
It's like an onion, bro.
Yeah.
It's just I keep looking into the movie and
Peeling
I'm
the
more
onion
and more,
back.
dude. It's wild.
It's one of those movies where you have to watch it multiple times.
God, yeah. I can't wait to.
And the first time you watch it, you're really just so enthralled by like figuring out what it is that you're watching,
What was
that you
real.
miss the directing, the acting.
All of it, yeah.
It's so good. Okay, you're listening to Booty Whiskey.
Booty whiskey.
My name is Patrick William. I am a failed author and a rambling New Yorker.
Oh, and I'm Austin Jenny. I'm his brother who makes B movies. Really successful so far too.
Super successful ham-fisted B flicks. Okay, for those who don't know what the hell we're talking about,
Yeah.
this movie was written by a very neurotic screenplay writer named Charlie Kaufman, who has a brother named Lloyd Kaufman, who is also in the movie industry and founded Tromaville. For those, again, scratching their head and don't know what the hell I'm talking about, Tromaville was a film studio, independent, in the 80s, that was just like pumping out what's known as like B movies, like low budget flicks, as opposed to like A movies, A-listers. These guys were doing B movies. Just tons of like college film students, bad acting, bad writing, bad camera work. Pumping it out.
Yeah.
These are not great movies, but they do have the underground classic, The Toxic Avenger. Some might recognize that. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a cult classic.
Well, people also watch B movies for an entirely different reason. You know, it's
Totally.
to have fun. Generally, you
It's
can
up
put them
there-
on at a movie or at a party.
Yeah, exactly. It's the type of like clips from Toxic Avenger definitely find their way into those like Halloween mashups, or like 4 hours of like clips, you know, like it's up there with Evil Dead and stuff like that.
I imagine.
So that's the brother to the guy who wrote this movie. I think it's important to understand that going in, because what we're about to talk about will feel highly convoluted if you don't get the family context,
Yes.
the industry context.
Extremely different personalities, it seems like, just
Yes.
ways of approaching life in all genres, you know?
How would you describe to someone who hasn't watched Adaptation, couple sentences, what they're about to see?
Oh my God. I guess just a multi-layered meta commentary on one's own writing process while critiquing the way that they live and the way they experience life and comparing themselves to others, especially his brother who is more successful in this exact same industry. And then just the neurotic way that he goes about his existence, you know?
So let's dive in.
To screen.
Let's dive in on the first sort of like tendril that you can grasp in this movie. We've got a movie that is about a writer. He's a screenplay writer named Charles Kaufman. So the writer of the actual movie has written himself into his own movie. And in the movie he's written, he is a writer writing a movie. Okay.
Based on a book.
Are we lost yet?
Yeah, right.
So in the movie, Charles Kaufman is assigned the task of adapting. Oh my God, I just got the title.
Oh, really?
I was thinking of it in terms of like evolution and, and flowers and organisms, because that's the theme they keep hitting about adaptation and change and evolution. I literally just got that he's adapting a novel.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so he's adapting this novel about orchids into a screenplay. That's like the basic premise. And he wants to be really true to the subject matter.
Yeah.
And the subject matter is sort of what he calls this rambling, sprawling New Yorker shit. What he means by that is it's not Hollywood. It doesn't have like character arcs and drama. People don't learn things and grow and change. It's just sort of like an expose on life. It's interesting. It's philosophical. It's sprawling New Yorker shit.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be a Hollywood blockbuster. It's just an interesting book.
Yeah, slice of life almost.
Yeah, exactly. And he wants to be really true to that subject matter. Okay, so that's our first character. The second character is his brother, who is basically a bum. He's like living, the first thing he says is like, thanks for letting me crash here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get a job. Or he says, I have a way of paying you back. And he's like, getting a job is a way of paying me back. So we established that his brother is a bum, like living on his couch. Charlie is supporting him. And the brother's idea is he's going to be like his brother and go to a screenplay writing seminar, and he's going to become a screenwriter.
It's that easy. Yeah.
And Charlie's like, you can't do that. It doesn't work like that. Anyone who's going to stand on a stage and tell you they have the answers is a hack.
Yeah.
Right? And every time that he comes into the scene with like some future scene, he comes in with this new information. Know what I learned at my seminar? And it's always just like stereotypical writing tropes.
100%. Talking about structure, all of it.
And he's always like, oh, I'll have a narrator do this. And oh, my character is going to be the bad guy and the good guy, multiple personalities. And just as an example of how meta this movie is, Charlie says to him verbatim at one point, the only thing more overdone than serial killers is multiple personalities. How would you even write that? And
that's the movie we're watching.
And that's the movie you're watching. Like you're watching.
Ooh.
So we didn't even mention this.
Oh.
The brothers are not just brothers. They're identical twins, both played by Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, yeah, that is very important. These are both Nick Cage.
They're both. So you're watching a scene. It's Nicolas Cage talking to Nicolas Cage about not wanting to write a movie with split personalities because it's hacky. And that's exactly what they've done.
Yeah, it's exactly what you're seeing at the very moment.
I think the whole idea is that both sides of the brothers' personalities and perspectives sort of represent two different takes on writing as a process and two different sides of Charlie Kaufman in real life. Like, do you want to be the guy who's all integrity, super serious, philosophical, deep?
Only making art pieces and,
Yeah. Or do you want to make money and actually succeed in this industry and like write something that people will actually like?
Yeah.
Do you want to do Face Off? Or do you want to do Leaving Las Vegas?
Oh, gosh.
And it's super fitting that Nicolas Cage was picked for this because when you look at his career, he sort of embodies this split personality perfectly.
Absolutely. Shooting off in every direction all the time.
Yeah. Like half the time they're critiquing these movie tropes. You're like, oh, that's National Treasure. Oh, that's Face Off. Yeah. They talk about his brother talks about wanting to represent his character's split personality.
Two cracked mirrors.
With fractured mirrors. And they literally did that scene in Face Off.
Oh, my goodness, dude.
It's amazing.
I make thrillers. What do you make?
Yeah. McKee says that every author has a genre, and the key is to succeed within your genre. Mine is thrillers. What's yours?
Yeah, dude.
It's like, oh my God, the look he gives him. So after we get through understanding these brothers, both writers, I guess it's an interpretive question whether they're the same person or two brothers in actuality. Yeah. It's almost unimportant. They represent different philosophies towards writing. But I think it's in a meta way. They're supposed to be the same person who has multiple personalities. But the fact that they do different things in the world is just funny. Yeah, I think to Charlie Kaufman because he's making fun of movies where that happens. He's like, how can your cop be at the police station and be locked in the basement? It doesn't even make sense.
Doesn't even make sense.
There's a scene later where like the one brother rescues the first brother by like hitting the person with the gun who's holding the gun on the brother. It's like if this is the same person, that doesn't make any sense. Fight Club sort of has that problem.
Oh, for sure.
But once we get past the brothers, let's get into the book he's adapting.
Yeah. What is it called? The Orchid Thief?
Yeah, The Orchid Thief.
I believe, yeah.
You want to get into a synopsis of maybe like the author and the Florida Man?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, essentially what it comes from a little newspaper article that the author of whom's book he is adapting. It's a little New Yorker piece where she goes and interviews this man, John LaRoche.
She's played by Meryl Streep, by the way.
Fucking great performance, too. Oh, my God.
What is the guy's name, too? The actor? He has one of those faces. I know him, and I couldn't pin his
Not
name.
a fucking clue. Yeah.
Great actor, though.
Yeah, he did a really good job. Yeah, no teeth.
Yeah.
Doesn't give a fuck.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good. But, yeah, essentially, she is tasked with writing this little piece in the New Yorker about this guy who's out there stealing flowers, right?
Yeah.
It's based off of the trial and...
Yeah. He went to court, and it became a big public, like, event, basically.
Yeah.
He was controversially employing Native Americans from the Seminole tribe because they have special legal access to the orchids, which are endangered.
Yeah, endangered, super hard to get, too.
Yeah, so he says as long as he doesn't touch them and the Seminole guys are the only ones picking the flowers, there's no legal way they can charge him with, like,
It's going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it's like...
But yeah, so essentially she goes down to meet him after she finds out about this, sees him in the court case, and she becomes pretty interested in his weird way of life. You know, he moves so passionately yet dispassionately from one subject to another and pours his entire obsession into it. And currently it's orchids right now. And you kind of
says he's like the world's leading expert on orchid propagation. He goes,
he's the smartest guy in the room.
He's like, I'm probably the smartest guy I know. He's got like master's degrees. He's written like 60 books.
Yeah.
So this guy is like super narrow-minded, like in terms of just having singular focus on something.
For sure, which is wild. But yeah. No, so the book is about her experience of meeting him and him taking her on this interesting ride to find this one specific orchid, the ghost orchid, and like in a long drawn out way of what she's feeling and how she makes him feel, or how he makes her feel through his passionate love of something, the search of something. That's what the entire book's about, really.
Yeah, and let's not spoil the twist till later, but essentially what's causing Charlie Kaufman to want to write this sort of this screenplay where nothing really happens and people don't change, etc., is because the book that she writes is kind of that way.
Yeah.
Like, not much happens. Like, they don't find the orchid. She just goes home, and it's just sort of her musings on life and the intrigues of this guy.
Yeah, this specific character she has found.
Yeah. More to come on the truth of that later.
Yeah,
but that's the setup for the book he's trying to adapt.
Yeah, which, my God, that would be so hard.
Yeah. And the way that the film is structured, it jumps back and forth between the present moment, which is Charlie Kaufman trying to write this thing, and he's struggling with it. He's always like talking into his little tape recorder.
Yeah.
We open on the beginning of Earth. Big Bang. Microcell organisms. He's like, all I have to do is connect history together. It's that easy.
All of it.
So he has these really big ideas because, you know, when nothing is happening, everything is possible to write about. Like, there's no focus, and that's one of the themes in the movie. But you're going between him writing this thing all neurotically, and then 3 years earlier, you're seeing the events of the Orchid Hunter and the interviews that the New Yorker writer is doing with him.
Yeah.
So you're seeing sort of like the reality of what happened, and then him trying to write based on an interpretation of a writing of what happened. Right. So there's like multiple reproductions.
Definitely. I mean, and that's also just based on her adaptation of what actually happens, you know?
So there's a lot of like unreliable narrator problems going on, untrustworthy accounts.
Yeah. I guess, this whole thing would have an untrustworthy narrator, huh? The whole time.
The whole thing is untrustworthy because it's being narrated by the main character who's clearly delusional.
Shit.
But then he's writing that's based on interpretations of a person who is also lying to herself and a Florida orchid thief who's delusional. And
there's a lot of delusion in this movie.
So one of the things that this orchid thief says that's very profound And it becomes a huge theme in the movie. Is he's talking about how these orchids are reproduced.
Yes.
And he says that the reason that they have such a cool shape and features and everything that makes them so unique is they've co-evolved with the local bug insect world. So each flower has a specific shape that only a specific species of insect can pollinate.
Yeah.
And then that insect is only able to pollinate that flower as well. So he likens it to like having a soulmate.
Yeah. Every human's just out there, trying to find their human.
Yeah. And there's a great scene where Nick Cage is looking at all these different women and he's like comparing them to flowers. And he's like, sometimes they look like a intellectual New Yorker and sometimes they look like Rosie from the diner. And
Sometimes you're a school teacher. Yeah.
And so there's this sort of metaphor about the proboscis shape and the flower and how each insect has to find the exact flower that it's capable of reproducing.
Yeah.
And he says, and this is the important part too, he says that the flowers and the insects have no idea what they're doing. They have no concept of the significance of their actions. They just do it because it's what they do, and life goes on because of it. And one of the things that our main character really envies about his like shitty writer brother
Yeah.
is that exact feature of him as a person. He says like, you're so unaware.
Yeah. Well, he's able to
And
just
say
live
that-
his life.
Yeah, he says that at the end. He says, you're so unaware, and I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, that truly touches on real subjects too in life. It's very easy to sit back and analyze everything you're doing
Dude.
from so far back instead of just being there in the moment, present.
That's one of the curses of being like, I would say really any form of artist, but especially anything that involves like writing and conceptual
I'm
stuff.
sure. When you're putting it to paper constantly.
Dude, just always overthinking everything. Creating extra layers of analysis in your life where they don't belong or they're unnecessary. Like analyzing your own relationships with people.
Totally.
The self-doubt, the insecurity, the like
deprivation of self
anxiousness.
even too, like he starts off with you're fat, you're fucking all this shit. It's constant.
Yeah, the first scene is actually just a black screen and audio, and it's just Nick Cage's character just like listing his own neuroses basically.
Yeah.
He's like, I should learn a new language. I could speak Chinese.
Yeah.
I need to start hitting the gym. But like seriously this time, what if I just did it? Like full commit. Like I could be better.
Dude,
this, that, and the other. And
that's
he's just
a
like
very relatable voice.
it's so relatable.
Yeah.
Every human has that inner self voice that's like critiquing and motivating and analyzing themselves. It's like the curse of consciousness.
For sure.
We're just incapable of escaping that sort of monologue inside of us.
And then his brother really proves that there's different levels to that. I mean, I've seen and I know people that are much happier because they choose not to really put themselves down all the time, constantly self-analyzing.
Yeah, and I think the towards the very end, there's a very important exchange between the two brothers where Charlie Kaufman, the insecure one, is saying to the unaware brother, allegedly unaware, that he saw in high school he was flirting with this girl, and then when he left, she and her friends started making fun of him. And he's like, you didn't even know, but you were so much happier for it. And he looks at him and he's like, no, I knew.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean you knew? But why weren't you sad? He's like, I loved her.
Yeah.
And she's not in control of my love. He says, you are what you love, not what loves you.
Yeah.
And he's like, but she thought you were pathetic. And he's like, that's her business.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the choice, He makes that choice. He is aware the whole time, but he's choosing to ignore it and just live his life.
That's the major distinction. It's not actually being ignorant. It's not the old adage, ignorance is bliss.
No. Yeah.
Because ignorance is just ignorance. It's about understanding what you're in control of versus what you're not in control of, and finding your happiness.
Choosing to be happy within that parameter.
Just choosing to be happy.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But
but deeply moving and very profound, especially after watching this whole movie, because there's this whole sense of like how life is just like a product of evolution and how like it almost seems like it's this unstoppable force and we're not in control.
Yeah, like predeterministic.
Yeah,
even.
there's a sense of determinism throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And then you get to the end and he says that. He's like, no, I knew. I just chose to enjoy my side of the equation.
I'd rather my viewpoint.
Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah,
whoa,
man.
that is how you attain happiness, huh?
Yeah, it is. It actually is.
Very cool.
Yeah, man. That was a good fucking movie.
It's so meta.
Yeah. But, like, not overwhelmingly or uncomfortably either, you know? Because, like, they used it tastefully when it was necessary, I think, for this screenplay or this entire story. But it wasn't just, like, breaking a fourth wall to break the fourth wall. You know, it wasn't Deadpool-y at all or anything like that.
Yeah, not Deadpool-y, not comical.
No.
Let's give a couple examples. I have some written down.
Yeah, please.
So, in real life, the author that wrote this movie, Charles Kaufman, also wrote Being John Malkovich, a movie which we're going to have to come clean. We haven't seen.
We're gonna. It's on the list.
Trust us. But that movie is also famously meta. And the first scene in this movie, Adaptation, where you're meeting his character, takes place on the set of Being John Malkovich.
Yeah.
And it's like John Malkovich talking to the cast, and then they cut over, or the camera pans over, and one of the director's assistants is like, hey, can you move? You're kind of in the frame. And it's our writer.
Yeah.
And so it's implied that he is the writer for John Malkovich. And in real life, that is the writer of this movie. That's probably something that happened to him.
Probably.
In real life.
Yeah.
So we're already meta just meeting the character.
The very beginning. Yeah.
There's a sense that, like, this is taking place in real life.
Yeah.
And this is the real experience of our author.
And to comment on that, what a crazy thing to do when making Being John Malkovich. Like, just to have that in your head already, dude.
Right?
What the fuck? That's so crazy.
So we have another scene. Mm-hmm. It's our character right after that asking himself a series of questions. And the last question he asks himself is like, how did I get here? And then the scene cuts to 4 billion years earlier, Hollywood, Los Angeles. Earth is a magma pool, getting just hit with comets and erupting gas. And the movie shows you the entire evolutionary process from, like, geological cooling to the oceans forming.
Yeah, microbes, all the way to
first
plants,
single-cell
everything.
organisms, a fish crawling out of the mud, and then you get up to Nick Cage. So you have this theme of, like, this deterministic evolutionary process where life emerges and just becomes Nick Cage's character that you're seeing now. And, like, the whole story of Earth is the story of our writer. Yeah. And there's this sense of scale, right?
Yeah. Which is insane that he says he wants to start the movie like that. Dude.
Yeah.
It's like,
so later in the movie, this is where it gets meta.
Yeah.
Later in the movie, your character, Charlie Kaufman, is talking to a tape recorder. He's like, I figured it out. It's like how to start the movie. He's like, we open on a planet full of magma 44 billion years ago. Life, evolution, adaptation, boom, Hollywood. And then he's listening to it back the next day, and he has this
disgust,
look.
dude.
Yeah, he hates his idea. He's like, this sucks. Yeah. But it's in the movie.
I know.
And it's just this, like, cyclical process of writing, editing. Is this good? I can't tell if it's good. I need validation.
Yeah.
We're going to put it in anyways. Yeah. Oh, I'm so self-indulgent. What a piece of shit I am.
And then continues.
Yeah. So very meta sort of circle of, like, writing, creating, self-consumption. He uses the metaphor of the Ouroboros later. Mm-hmm. It's like, I am the Ouroboros. I'm eating myself.
That's what he said. I knew what Ouroboros was, but I didn't catch that when he was saying that. I didn't hear that. But
because his brother has a character in his stupid thriller movie where he eats his victims piece by piece, but he's the victim, and he's like, I'm eating myself to death. It's like just like the Ouroboros.
Oh my god, dude.
It's so good.
Yes.
This is what I mean by layers.
Yes.
It's like everything that happens at any point in this movie is like pointing to some other part of this movie or Charles Kaufman's real life, or like, it's all eating itself and feeding off of itself.
Dude.
From beginning to end.
This is absolutely the best version of anything meta I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Any sort of meta in a movie.
Yeah.
Any sort of meta thing. This is it? This is top tier.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I would happily say that.
Yeah.
I really, after thinking about it now, these last like half hour or so, this is definitely the best movie I think we've seen so far in our podcasting journey.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about true love, I guess.
Yeah.
So I wrote down half an hour in, is this movie about finding true love? Because of LaRoche's comments on like the proboscis and the flower.
Definitely.
And then the sense that I was getting from the journalist and LaRoche that she was falling in love with him.
Yep.
Because of how unique he was. And she felt like a bug and he felt like a flower. Mm-hmm. And he has a comment later. He's like, why don't you fucking leeches leave me alone and find your own lives? You just only want me because I'm so interesting. Get your own fucking hobbies and interests. Yep. It's just kind of a cool idea that she's attracted to him because he's interesting and her life is boring. Yeah. So like her proboscis fits into his flower.
Absolutely. I think even greater than just the concept of finding just love. I wrote down the conjoining of two. Because it's not just about love. I mean, it's even his inner self when his brother finally dies and he becomes just that one person. I think it's just the conjoining of two things to make a whole is a huge part of this as well. Totally. Yeah.
She says that change is not a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens and then you're different.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's a lot of those moments in this movie where... And they tend to happen because of other people. So, like, people meet someone or they have a conversation and then it, like, awakens something in them and they can't go back.
Yeah.
And there's this realization for her that her life is not the life she wants to be living.
Yeah.
She has no passion is one of the things she says. I just wish that I have a passion for... wishing that I knew what it was like to be passionate.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm very meta.
No, for sure, man. And I also get that, too. It's easy to relate with that.
And then Charlie Kaufman, he sort of despises his brother's lack of integrity in writing, but he also envies his ability to just live his life and be a normal person and just go get it, go just after it.
Just live. Yeah.
And you do get the sense that they're like a yin-yang almost, like two sides of the same coin. And if they could only merge... into one being, they'd be a complete person.
Yeah.
And that's essentially, I think, what the third act of the movie is about.
With the finishing of his screenplay, which, is just actually the whole lead up to the whole drug empire thing.
Okay, so
we should touch the end, I think.
The whole movie he's talking about how he wants the subject matter to be played true to the book. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want it to become a Hollywood thing where it's all about character arc and drama and plot devices and stuff like that. But he's bashing his head against the wall how to make this a good movie. He can't write the fucking thing. Yeah. And he finally breaks down and he goes to the lecture series that his brother's been going to by like Robert McKee, who's like just one of those Hollywood like writer lecturers. Yeah. Stands on stage, is like, what is the essence of story? And he goes there and he says he raises his hand, he asks a question, what if I want to write a screenplay where characters don't really learn anything or change and nothing much happens and they just sort of exist and then it's over like life. And dude, this guy rips him a new asshole
apart.
Not only, he says, would that be a complete waste of his life and time to watch your movie? So don't fucking write it. You're going to bore your audiences if nothing happens. Yeah. Like, how can a protagonist not have desire? It doesn't make any fucking sense. But beyond that, he says, if this is what you actually think that life is like, that nothing happens, you don't know shit about life.
You're not living at all. Yeah. And he goes on to like name every terrible thing that could possibly be going on, but also some,
just every day people find love, they lose love. Yeah. There's a murder on the street corner. A woman is beaten in front of the church steps.
Someone saves another one's life. Yeah.
And someone chooses to destroy another life. And he's listing all these dramatic things humans do every day, and he's totally right. Yeah. Life is full of drama.
Absolutely. And when you're in that little bubble, you're choosing not to see any of it because you're
neurotic,
so focused.
Because he's so suppressed by his own self-doubt.
Yep.
Nothing's happening in his life. because he's failing to act.
So it must not be happening anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has this epiphany after that, and he realizes this guy's right. He has a total sort of like breakdown, and he accepts that he was wrong, which is rare for these types of characters in movies like this.
Definitely.
I'd like to point out.
For sure.
He accepts the epiphany, and he goes and he follows the speaker, and they go and have a drink together at a diner. And he tells him, look, I don't know how to end this movie. Help me.
Yeah.
And the guy says, look, at the end of the day, audiences can forgive having a weird middle portion of the movie and a meandering rambling New Yorker shit.
Yeah.
As long as the ending is strong. What you need to do is have your characters change. You need resolution. You need change. The characters have to change. And it has to come from within. And he's like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And the moment after that scene happens, the whole tone of the movie changes.
100%. It was so interesting. I really, yeah. Oh.
All of a sudden, we're in Act 3 of the movie, and it becomes everything that the character was saying he doesn't want it to become in the first act.
Yeah.
We've got drama, intrigue,
action,
cheating,
yeah,
snooping around.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Drugs, fucking all of it, dude.
So why don't you go into like the next sequence of events where he like starts to get intrigued about the author and starts digging.
Well, yeah, so he decides after his little meeting with the whatever you'd call him,
motivational speaker.
Motivational, yeah, whatever.
Writer,
yeah,
teacher.
Writer, speaker. He decides he needs to meet this author. He needs to finally like...
The one he's writing about.
Yes,
or
yeah.
The one whose book he's adapting.
Yeah, he needs to like grow a pair and actually go to New York and do this. And he goes and still can't bring himself to even get out of the elevator to talk to her. You know?
So cringe.
Yeah. Oh, God, what does happen right after that, though? How does he actually... see her?
He recruits his brother.
That's when he calls his brother in? Okay,
yeah,
so
the two sides of the coin start to converge together.
Because he needs his brother. He needs that part of him to help him get through the story.
Yeah. One thing that happened leading up to this, too, is that his brother's quote-unquote shitty thriller movie actually sells.
Yeah.
And he's talking about like a 6-figure payment.
Yeah, or to 1.5 million, which is nuts.
And so he's realizing like, okay, I might be a little hard on my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe his movies are sort of hacky and his writing is a little shallow, but he's clearly tapping into something that is working and people like what he's doing.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm the one that could use his help now. Because the whole movie up till now, the hacky brother's been begging for help and critiques from his smarter brother.
Yeah.
Can you help me write my movie? I need a killer. I need a creative way for them to die, etc.
Yeah.
And so he calls on his brother and he's like, will you help me finish my movie?
Yes. And then the brother comes, they talk about it, he reads it, and then they decide that his brother will be the one to go meet the author.
Yes.
And that is a hilarious interaction. I loved that whole thing.
He's like, but you can't represent me the wrong way. Yeah. No flirting, no obnoxious jokes,
laughing.
no laughing. He's like, why would I laugh? I'm being you.
Cut
to laughter.
Yeah, laughing and being just,
like, very interesting.
Just so extra. But yeah, no. He can tell that she's lying, though, when they go and
about the
talk
contents of her book.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he asks her a series of questions, and the last question is, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who'd it be? And she's like, Einstein, maybe Jesus.
Yeah.
And he gives her this look. He's like, very interesting answer.
The eyebrows, dude. That was like my favorite. That was like the 1 out of 5 Cage level right there.
He puts his pen to his lips. He's like, and raises his eyebrows. He's like, very interesting. He's perfected the pretentious investigative look.
For sure. No,
the Tucker Carlson, like, I'm just asking questions.
It's just questions. What's wrong? But no, so yeah, he talks to her. He can tell that she's lying about the way everything went.
Like her answers were too honest.
Yeah, it was too real.
Too real.
Yeah.
Too good, I think is what he says.
Yeah.
He's like, everyone says Jesus or Einstein. It's too good. Like, that's not a real answer.
So the solution is binoculars and spying. They go into like a hotel or some shit across from where her building is, so they can see down into her office, or maybe even her home. I don't know.
I think it's her
husband
apartment.
was there.
Yeah, it's like their home.
Yeah, and so they're looking through binoculars and they see that she's buying a plane ticket to Miami, which is strange because that's where John LaCroix is, right?
Yeah.
LaRoche.
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 LaCroix.
LaCroix. I'm drinking a LaCroix. That must
That's
be
product placement.
That's right. Is it sponsored?
Yeah. And he's rationalizing it. He's like, well, there's the writing convention is in Tampa. And she's like, no, this is no convention.
Yeah.
And it's like they're hitting all these Hollywood thriller movie beats.
Immediately.
Like, she's up to no good. And then the husband comes home. He's like, she's acting weird. Is she acting weird? She's lying. She's keeping something from him.
From a fucking building away, you can tell it all.
They follow her to Miami. They book plane tickets right then.
Instantly.
They follow her to Miami. They start snooping around. They end up at LaRoche's garden nursery, his little nursery where he's growing orchids.
Yeah.
And they realize that he's like manufacturing drugs out of the orchids.
Essentially, yeah. A drug that helps you find fascination in things.
Yeah. Which is clearly what he's been on.
Yeah.
Because he has this whole character trait where he gets wrapped up in a subject and then he drops it. And wrapped up, drops it. First it was turtles. Then it was fossils. Now it's orchids.
And porn.
And porn is next. Yeah. He's losing it on orchids.
Yeah.
But they discover basically through spying and intrigue that she's cheating on her husband with him.
Mm-hmm. She's taking the drug too.
They're doing drugs together and manufacturing these drugs together.
They have like a little greenhouse compound with a bunch of them manufacturing at once.
And at one point, he does get discovered, and they're like, "Oh, he's the writer to the book," but he says our book. Mm-hmm. He says, "Oh, he's the one adapting our book."
Yeah,
implying they colluded on the book the whole time. Mm-hmm. And it comes out during this sort of third act that the contents of the book are all a lie.
Completely false.
Nothing happened is bullshit.
Yeah.
A ton happened, but she lied about it because she's afraid of like what it's going to do to her life, basically.
But yeah, no, she lived the drama. She fell in love. She started doing drugs with this dude, cheating on her husband and still living this double life in New York.
And so his whole perception that like life is boring, characters can just exist without drama and not learn anything.
It's all falsity.
It's based on him reading this book, which is a lie. All right. So again, we're getting meta. And he's unraveling the story of his own story. And then becoming a major character in it, in the drama, in the third act. Super cool way of like injecting the character back into the story.
100%. And so he gets found out once he goes and snoops on him, right? And they're in there questioning him, like,
they're
what are
high
you doing here?
On this like weird green orchid drug.
I want to try some of that. Dude.
So much plant matter. It was so green.
Your nose is
and those lines were fat.
That's not a line of you don't do that.
No,
that's not. That's like
it was like a mountain of green powder that she's ripping up her nose.
Good old Meryl. But they start questioning him. They get all scared, and mostly her.
She realizes that he's going to write about this, and it's going to break up her marriage and ruin her life, and she freaks out. And they decide they need to.
They gotta kill him.
They gotta kill him.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, that's
he runs. They chase. They end up in the swamps. They're chasing him through the swamp with guns. This is exactly the kind of movie.
His brother enters as well.
Yeah, both brothers are there.
Yeah.
And again, this goes back to like not making any sense from a story perspective. Like, how do you write a split personality, single character?
Yeah.
But he has two bodies that both interact with the world.
Yeah, it's very strange. And it kind of seems like, even I feel like they don't know either. Because when he kicks out that back car door to hit her and hit the gun out of her hand, they're like, where did that come from? And they never like say.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be cheeky, I think. It's comedy at that point. It's like self-referential comedy where it's like, this can't be happening. Yet it is.
Yet here we are.
Yeah. So they're doing all the things that he wanted to avoid in Act 1.
Yep.
They're running through a swamp with a gun.
Yep.
They're cheating on each other's spouses. They're spying, snooping, betraying. There's so much human drama, character growth, and arcs.
And then right at the end, right there, they use a Deus Ex Machina.
Oh yeah,
with
and
the alligator.
The one thing that professional screenplay writer, motivational speaker says earlier. He's like, he has all these rules, principles. And he's like, first of all, voiceover is lazy. There's so many better ways of showing what your character is thinking. Actually show it. Don't just say it. He's like, it's so lazy. The whole movie, they're doing voiceovers.
The whole thing.
Split personality. So lazy. But the biggest cardinal sin, he's like, don't you dare end your movie with a Deus Ex Machina, which for people who don't know is where just something sort of random and convenient happens at the end of a movie to like fix the issue, to like resolve the conflict without the character having to actually resolve the conflict.
Yep.
And he's staring down these people in the swamp. They're facing him down with guns. What happens?
Well, his brother gets shot.
Yes, that happens.
Yes.
But the Deus Ex Machina.
It happens right after that. His brother gets shot in the arm and then gets taken out by an alligator.
The shooter. Does, yeah, LaRoche is going to shoot him.
Yeah.
And a fucking crocodile just comes up and mangles him into the swamp.
It does the death roll. He's fucked up. He's gone. Yeah.
And a total Deus Ex Machina. It's like, it's just the environment just handles the problem for the character.
For sure.
And they get away. They get into their car.
Yeah, they don't make it far, though.
They don't make it far because they immediately get in a car crash, and his brother gets launched through the windshield and dies on the pavement after a slight touching scene where he tries to sing to him to keep him awake. He's like, don't close your eyes, don't sleep.
Yeah.
Kind of a bittersweet moment, but it's kind of like...
Well, it's the conclusion of his brother's character as well. You know, that is the merging of...
It's the convergence, It's the two becoming one. Like, this one died because now he awakened in him, and now he's a complete person.
Yeah.
It's not split. There's unity.
And that's all just being written. None of this, like... I don't think any of this happens.
Right.
Right? You know?
Yeah.
Because this is just his screenplay.
After his brother dies, he cries and calls his mom and goes back and lives at home with his mother, which he was making fun of his brother for the whole movie. He's like, oh, my roommate, you mean mom?
Yeah.
Like, so he goes back to live with mom now, full circle, because he's absorbed his brother's essence. Or just come to terms with who he is.
Or he always lived with his mom.
He's being honest about himself now.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's been living with his mom the whole time.
Man, really.
But he's at a typewriter, you know, and you realize, I think, what they were showing is that you realize everything you've watched up to this point was the story that he's writing.
Yeah, the whole screenplay.
And he's like, I'm almost done.
You can tell specifically when he has all the scratches on his forehead from the crash.
Yeah.
And the very next moment, he's still writing again, and
they're all gone.
Yeah.
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 So now you snap into reality where he's finishing the screenplay. It's the real Charlie Kaufman living at home with his mother, a failed writer, maybe breaking through for the first time in his life.
And feeling like full because he finished exactly what he wanted to do.
And he's come to terms with the multiple layers of his own personality, and he's come to terms with like who he is. And I have something written here at the end.
Yeah.
Being honest with yourself. Because after that, he goes to the woman that he's been in love with this whole time, but hasn't had the gumption to go like actually confess his love or talk to or kiss or whatever. He goes to her, he kisses her, and she says like, why are you doing this now? I'm in a relationship. He says, because I love you.
Yeah.
And she's like, I love you too. And she
Walks
walks away
smiles,
and he smiles, and it goes back to what his brother told him, which is really him telling himself during the writing process. And he's self-therapizing. But he says, you are what you love, not what loves you. And he has this awakening, this realization that he just has to be honest with himself and go kiss the girl.
Yeah. And she loves him still.
If she loves him,
it doesn't matter though. Yeah.
That's her business.
It's her business.
He just has to be honest with himself and share himself with the world, and the world can react accordingly. Dude, that's the only way to move forward.
Such a cool movie about personal growth.
Yeah.
And just connection and everything. That was a good movie.
It's so deep.
Yeah.
And it's entertaining too. It's
my God. I could not keep my eyes off it. I couldn't sit back. I was like hunched
leaning
up, like,
forward.
What the hell is going to happen next?
It's one of those movies that has entertainment value. You're just watching it. It's cool. It's funny. It's got a great plot, great acting. The directing is great as well.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about all.
They're overshadowed by the writing.
Yeah.
like I said at the beginning, the writer is the star.
Yeah.
He literally put himself in the movie.
I mean, hey, kudos. He deserves all the praise.
Yeah. But at the same time as it's entertaining, it's also like deeply meaningful.
For sure.
It has like the impact of like a great literary novel.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, I feel like it was just as meaningful for Charlie himself as a lot of the actors in it, as us, as the audience. And as we watched in a little interview before, Charlie Kaufman writes for himself.
yeah, let me play that clip real quick for the audience.
I would love to see the other Nick Cage interview too.
Yeah, we've got a couple pieces of interviews here that we should get into because they are pretty cool. This is Charlie Kaufman talking about his writing process.
Whenever you're writing particular moments, do you write them knowing what our reactions to something that is unfamiliar is going to be?
No.
No?
I don't think about the audience. I think about what appeals to me or what's moving me or what I think is funny or scary. It's the only way I know how to write. So yeah, I try not to think about that. And you hope that people will respond to it, but
That's a very
So
interesting answer,
Yeah.
given how meta the movie is in real life and how meta he's so aware of the process. And for him to say he doesn't write with the audience in mind is like hard to believe.
Yeah, but I do.
But it's so personal. It's like, I do believe it.
Yeah.
This is clearly
it's
a neurotic journey.
for
him.
sure. I mean, and you specifically just said he's so aware, and how he wants to perhaps be more unaware. And like, I bet he wishes that he could write like that, but
Yeah.
He
can't write Face Off.
No, it would be a terrible movie if he wrote
It's
Face
so
Off.
funny that all of the things that they critique in this movie from a writer perspective, like all the hacky shit and the shallow tropes. It's like you can find one of those movies in Nick Cage's filmography, like each one there's an example.
For sure.
He's describing National Treasure. He's describing Face Off. He's describing The Rock.
And yet he does this.
And then he does this, and you're
it's
like,
like,
whoa,
Nick.
dude, Nick Cage is the journey of this idea.
Yeah. No, he really is. I
In
don't think
practice.
he could have picked a better actor to portray this movie.
No.
No way.
And it's like a meta choice because when you look back at Nick Cage's career over, like when he finally retires and people make like an anthology of Cage and you get to Adaptation after having seen these other movies, like it just clicks. Like this is a man who understood his craft.
Yeah,
He
very
understood
well.
his place in the mythos of Hollywood. Like this is not by accident.
Not at all. God, dude. It's all so cool. I am. Oh, I love it. I love good film.
Let's watch a Nick Cage interview real quick. Adaptation.
For sure.
At least some of it.
I think the movie stands on its own, but it certainly, if I hadn't seen Being John Malkovich and I'd seen Adaptation, I'd want to see Being John Malkovich because I do like that kind of adventuresome creativity. And Being John Malkovich had a lot to do with me wanting to do Adaptation because I thought that was a beautiful movie. This one seems almost in some ways a little more far out. It really, because Charlie Kaufman put himself in the film, sort of. It doesn't really look like him, but it is him on some level, and on another level it isn't. It becomes very sort of three-dimensional and a lot of layers, peeling the onion type stuff. Well, my sense of Charlie Kaufman is that he's a brilliant artist who is very passionate about his craft and very loaded with self-doubt and insecurities that compel him, I think, to really dig a little deeper and free himself. I think he uses his pressure, but this is just my interpretation, of course.
Super interesting.
Yeah. That reminds me what he said about a very passionate, focused on his craft. I had some notes written. That's another one of the themes of the movie is like this sort of like putting blinders on yourself.
Yeah.
With the brother, it's like his unawareness or whatever. But with LaRoche, it's his ability to stay focused on one thing.
Yeah, obsessively even, almost.
And one of the quotes from the woman's book, I forget her character's name.
I know, me too.
From her book, she says, focused interests whittle the world down to a manageable size. So there's this idea that like the world is too big, It's too complex. You can't write about everything. And that's what he's struggling so much with in Act 1.
Yeah.
He literally says at one point, I get it. I've got it.
It's going to fit all of history.
All I have to do, it's all about history. All I have to do is tie everything together. Everything that's ever happened. And he's talking about the Big Bang and evolution, and you're seeing all that stuff. And it's just not manageable. No. Like, it's not possible to do everything all at once. I haven't seen that movie either, but want to see that one?
Oh, dude, I just watched it.
Yeah?
Holy fuck. It's so good. We should watch it later.
Okay. But it's not possible to actually do that from a writing perspective. And this idea that, like, having a hobby or having a focus, a narrow focus, whittles the world down to a manageable size. It's like a coping mechanism for actually getting through life, let alone creating material as a writer or an artist. It's like you need to pick a subject and roll with it.
You can't just write. I mean, you maybe change your subject around, but when you're writing about one thing, you know, one maybe group of things, whatever, one subject, it's way more manageable.
Yeah.
And that ties
I want to write
everything.
about the human condition.
Yeah.
That's too big. What the fuck do you mean?
It's the same thing of like making music. You know, you can't make every genre at the same time. you know, it's
well, McKee says every artist lives within a genre. You have to pick your genre and thrive within it. Mine's thrillers. What's yours?
Mine is not. Mine's not thrillers.
But yeah, like you can't just write about the human condition. No. You have to pick a specific slice of characters' lives and tell a story that involves the human condition. It shows some element of it.
One puzzle piece.
If you just write about things that are too big, you're not writing about anything and you're just losing your audience.
No, yeah, that sounds like a documentary at that point.
Yeah, you know, but even a documentary, a good one.
Yeah.
They have a subject.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's
I mean, just a documentary on humans.
Yeah, it's like life. You can't do a documentary on life itself.
No.
Like, you need to stay focused. That's like one of the hardest parts of being an author for Charlie, it seems, is like life is too big. There's too much to think about.
Yeah.
How do you stop yourself from going everywhere?
Super cool.
He's like, I wrote myself into my own screenplay. It's pathetic. It's solipsistic. I'm a fat slob. But this is a brilliant movie.
Yeah. I can't believe you'd write yourself into that, saying that.
It's so neurotic.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's watch the other Nick Cage interview too.
Yeah,
where
the GQ
he's gonna
one.
Talk about the GQ one. He goes into his own iconic characters.
Nice. Yeah, I was wondering because this is a much later date, right? This is more recent.
Wow, Adaptation. When people say I love Donald, I get jealous because I don't remember playing Donald. I was so into the Charlie Kaufman headspace, and Charlie and I would spend hours interviewing. I would interview Charlie, and I tape recorded all the interviews. He said, well, I'm going to let you do this if you promise it never goes anywhere. And I said, Charlie, I'm going to light them on fire, I promise you. And I did. I poured kerosene on it, lit them all on fire, they're all gone. But I went through all the motions with Kaufman. I said, well, let me see you get angry.
It's a tragedy.
What do you like when you... And he was a good actor, actually. Charlie Kaufman is a very good actor. It was twice as much dialogue as everybody else. And I would go to set, and if I got out of bed on that side and I was in a good mood, I said, let's start with Donald today. And if I woke up the next day and I got out of bed on that side and I was in a bad mood and cranky, I'd say, let's start with Charlie today. So we shoot the whole thing one way. This is either Charlie or Donald. And then take what I did, put an earpiece in my ear, and do playback while I looked at a tennis ball on a stand like that over there.
Damn.
You know. And imagine I'm either Charlie or Donald and talking to one another.
Wow.
It was probably the most acrobatic challenge as a thespian I've ever had, and I'm not even sure I could do it again. I'm not sure I could.
But anyway, it's cool for my killer to have this modus operandi because at the end, when he forces the woman who's really him to eat herself, he's also eating himself to death.
I'm insane. I'm Ouroboros.
I don't know what that word means.
I've written myself into my screenplay. That's kind of weird, huh?
You know, Meryl was great, and Chris was great, and you know,
Chris
they
Cooper.
got their Oscars, but
That's the other
cool.
actor.
I was just, it's all good. They were brilliant in the movie, but it was the most challenging thing I've ever done.
Wow. The most challenging thing I've ever done. That's awesome.
Harder than leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah.
In terms of research and
Oh, God, I'm sure.
getting into the role.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, you're doing a real person, you know.
A real person who wrote the movie.
Yeah.
Who's right there with you, coaching you, doing interviews with you. That's crazy that he interviewed him and then burned the tapes.
I respect that
I do too.
Yeah.
I wish he didn't.
I agree, but
I want those tapes.
I wish he didn't, but I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, you got to respect people's wishes and respect their boundaries.
Especially when it's something so wildly personal. Oh my
God.
God.
Dude, this is a person's life.
Yeah.
It's their actual core essence.
Yeah, their magnum opus, really.
Yeah. What a masterpiece.
Yeah. Wow, dude. I'm still reeling. I need to watch it again. I will watch it again, for sure. I'm sure all of the listeners are going to need at least one or two.
At least two.
Yeah.
Just so that the first time through you can try to grasp the story and the concept.
Yeah.
The second time you can appreciate things like acting, directing. Was there even a soundtrack? Like I missed it.
No
you know
idea.
what I mean?
No, I definitely now that I'm thinking about it, I need to watch it like soon because I want this fresh. I want to look at it all again through the same. Oh,
this was my third time watching it, but there's at least like 5-year gaps between each viewing.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily giving me fresh perspectives each time I've watched it. It's just reminding me how much I like the movie.
Absolutely.
It would be cool to watch it like almost back to back in the same week.
I know.
And just like,
we need more time to do this. We need to make this our full-time job.
We got to quit our jobs.
I'm saying, all right, everybody. We're starting a Patreon.
We need your help.
You need to know what we know.
We want to do this full time for you, audience. Please help us.
Please. No, that was a fantastic movie. I'm excited to see what the hell else we're going to see in this series.
Yeah. What are we doing next week?
Next week, we're doing Gone in 60 Seconds. Gone in 60 Seconds.
Back to a big dumb action movie.
I haven't seen it, so I'm pretty excited.
I've seen it once, but I want to say I was in 8th grade, and that was a long time ago.
That don't count.
Yeah. Like, it's been over 20 years since I've watched this movie, I think.
Damn, dude. Yeah, I'm here for it. I loved Adaptation. That was so good.
So artistic and thoughtful and just, like, thought-provoking and mind-bending.
Mm-hmm. A good way to start the day, too. We did this as a morning episode. And
first morning episode.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was good. My brain feels pretty fresh right now. Now I'm going to go waste it at work.
Yeah, let's go waste away on the line. Like soldiers in a trench.
That's what we do. Just for you guys.
Just taking grenades and lobbing them back.
Goddamn gluten allergy grenades, bro. I'm going to start throwing them.
You do not have a gluten allergy.
They're caliac, though.
Oh, my God. Caliac. Get them out. Take it off the menu.
I know. All right.
Well, we love you. This has been Booty Whiskey.
Booty Whiskey, I think episode 8.
I'm losing track. 7 or 8.
We're getting there. We're going.
Almost halfway through. We're doing 16 episodes is the goal.
Yeah.
And then, like we said in the first episode, we're going to try and do a March Madness bracket. Mm-hmm. So, like a finale episode.
Yeah.
Where we can decide the best Nicolas Cage movie.
This has got to be up there, man. So far, it's going to be like Leaving Las Vegas, this. I mean, none of them else, they don't really come close as far as like actual chops go.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I haven't seen The Magnificent Weight of Massive Talent.
That's going to be good. Oh, Mandy and
Pig. Like the new era indie movies that he's been pumping out over the last 5 years.
Yeah, man.
Are up there in terms of artistic value.
You haven't seen Pig, right?
No, I've seen Pig.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I've seen Pig and Mandy. I have not seen Colors Out of Space.
Yeah, that's me neither. I have no idea about that one. So
those are going to be our last 4 for those who are wondering.
Hell yeah. Good old finale. I like it.
End current. We're going to end chronologically, basically.
Yeah, trying to at least. Yeah. Getting there.
But I'm excited about that. And it is going to be a pretty tight race, I think.
For sure.
And we can't rule out the sleeper hit. Like some of those...
Definitely not. Some comedies and stuff like that. I mean, it's a different type of movie, but we're going to have to really...
I think like how in March Madness there's like Eastern Conference, Western Conference, etc. We should do like the big budget dumb Hollywood bracket.
Yep.
The indie art house bracket.
Yep.
The meme bracket. You've got Wicker Man and Interview with a Vampire. No, that's... Vampire's Kiss. Interview with a Vampire is Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that'd be... I wish Nick Cage was in it.
Holy shit, dude.
All right, guys. Booty Whiskey Podcast.
We out.
Thanks
See you
again.
next time.
Nicolas Cage's wild embrace, adapting words from written page. Life in chaos in a cage. Books and movies, they intertwine. Hollywood's madness, line by line. Loss and love, an orchid dies. Adaptation, truth and lies. Cage, cage, cage. In the center of the page, love, flowers, and a screenplay. Meta fourth wall breaks. Writers write and hope it ends. Twins fight but are really friends. One is dumb and one is smart. One has brains but one has heart. Life is too big to write on it all. Narrow your vision, keep your eye on the ball. Deadlines approach, but the job's incomplete. Adapting a book on the edge of your seat. Cage, cage, cage. In the center of the page, love, flowers, and a screenplay. Meta fourth wall breaks. Cage, cage, in the center of the page. Love, flowers, and a screenplay. Meta fourth wall breaks.